Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be virtually there with you. It'll be nice to see the friendly faces and meet new ones, but I'm far away, so I had to present online. I'm Vasiliki Meletaki. I'm a postdoc at Penn Center for Neuroaesthetics. I'm working with Anton Chatterjee here at UPenn, and before that I did my PhD with Beatrice Calamarino that presented earlier, and Tina Foster. And today I will talk to you about a new project that we're currently working on about some of the research methods and some guidelines on how to use dance to better understand the human cognitive systems. This is an ongoing research project that I'm really happy to work with Julia Christensen, who is somewhere there in the background, with you, with Andrea Orlandi, Kohinoor Jarda, and Laura Rai. So it's a really beautiful team, a collaboration that we have come all together, trying to better understand some of the issues that we have faced ourselves, what we can do to improve it. So this is very much work in progress. We need like some changes before we publish the preprint. So it's a work in progress. So we're happy to get any feedback that you might have. Now, we already know and have heard about dance and how it can help us, how it has already helped us better understand the neural substrates of action perception and movement representation in the brain. We have seen how it helps understand the aesthetic appreciation of movement and its neural substrates again, how we can use dance as a neurocognitive model of expertise to study the neuroplasticity and the learning that takes place in dance practice and dance training. And lastly, how it can help the rehabilitation and recovery from disease or injury. So we have already some good literature there about how it helps in different ways. However, our goal here is some kind of guidelines and framework, how to better, how can we combine different ideas that we have about how to study dance, how to improve studying dance. So we have this framework that we're working on, 7 main points. One is, what is dance exactly? And what are the neurocognitive mechanisms that we should consider when we operationalize dance? The second is, who is a dancer? And how do we measure dance expertise? And honestly, that's not an easy question to answer. How do we replicate dance reality in the lab? It seems a bit counterintuitive. Then how can we create a meaningful real-world impact by studying dance? What are the perspectives that we should consider? Then we have the cross-cultural work, the individual features of dance that we should consider. And lastly, how we can enhance visibility and replicability. I will mostly focus on the first 2 or 3, but I will go briefly through all of them. Now, what is dance? I won't try to give a definition that is only one. I think most of us can have a different idea of what dance is, although we all understand, we all recognize dance. No 2 notions of dance are the same. It can be a simple movement, a groove, it can be a groove to a beat. It can be the movement that we do in our bathroom. It can be a more sophisticated movement, for example, Latin dance, or even these highly skilled performances that we see from ballet dance and Bharatanatyam that have this academic training. So when we're saying that we study dance experts, we need to have a better idea of what we have in mind when we study dance, what exactly are we studying. And dance, we could define it kind of as a group of behaviors that rely on synchronizing the different the full body movements to an internal or an external beat. or to movements of people around us. And now moving to the neurocognitive mechanisms and of dance and how these manifest as behavior in dance. For the sake of presenting this today, I'm borrowing the aesthetic triad of Chatterjee and Vasiliki from 2014 with sensory motor, emotion evaluation, and knowledge meaning the three parts that kind of are parts of the aesthetic experience. And this is not only for aesthetics. In this case, we won't approach dance only as an aesthetic experience, but it will help to kind of group together these different ideas. I will first talk about the sensory motor part. We have really rich literature here, and it's really, we have so many different mechanisms and how they manifest as behavior in dance. For example, we have the motor sequence learning and the memory. We have the limb coordination. And this has to do with the complexity of the dance style. And for every one of these, I will be giving examples of kind of higher complexity and lower complexity in a way. So as a higher complexity, we can have the ballet dance or pole dancing that are really hard to coordinate the limbs. Ballet might require like years and years of training. What is the repertoire that we have to learn here? And belly dance is kind of simpler on how many different moves that are variable for the dancers. The second is a neural entrainment, the brain and body synchronization to the beat. So this is really about the absence of presence of music or rhythm. For example, we can have tap dancing here, where the dancers themselves create the music they dance to, or bato, which is a Japanese dance form, very experimental, where they dance in silence or in various soundscapes with unconventional sounds sometimes. We have the person and body perception and social touch. This is about the presence and proximity to others. For example, we have contact improvisation, which really emphasizes on exploring, challenging very personal space through touch and interaction. And then we have breakdancing, which has very little touch with the other group or with the same group members. Then we have the visual and the motor learning and expertise. So Beatrice, for example, touched on this earlier. We have here the expertise and the familiarity of dancers and observers. For example, the choreographers or dance critics, they will be very familiar to the historical and the cultural context of a performance. A dancer in training might have this less, but they still might connect with the movement. They can really appreciate the technical difficulty there. And then we have naive observers who mostly watch a performance to get the aesthetically pleasing experience out of it, but they don't always understand how difficult it is what dancers are showing there. Then we have the synchrony between dancers. So for example, here we have the line dancing or Latin dance that requires really deep partner synchronization to perform the movement. And then we have other styles, for example, Vogue or Vogue Femme, that doesn't really focus on synchrony, even if there are more people dancing together. And about the space and object perception, here, this is really about the context and the complexity of the dance setting. So where do we do this dance? Ballet is almost always performed in theaters, in dance studios. On the other hand, folk dancing is more in social gatherings and celebrations that can be in a living room, it can be on the street. Similar to breakdancing, that can be anywhere on the street or an empty spot, an empty space. For example, somewhere around the city. Now, moving to the emotion and evaluation part. Here we have, obviously, emotion and expression, which is such a key component to dance. Here we have really the expressive element, both face and body emotion, and the gesture meaning. As an example here, I have Bharatanatyam because it's really high in expressivity and its storytelling elements. Even the eyes have such a strong expression in Bharatanatyam. Every little move has a very specific meaning. Now, on the other hand, we have contemporary, which is really expressive. I love contemporary. This is what I do as well in a very amateur stage. So it has this expressivity, and it tells a story, but it's not a specific movement linked to specific meaning. It can mean different things. It can really vary based on how the dancer has decided to go with the movement, how the audience might feel it, and unless you know a bit better, you might not understand all the expressions behind the movement. And then we have the stress response and the reward system. So here it's more about the competitive and the performative aspects of dance. It's really about the extrinsic and intrinsic motivation or the reward. For example, about the dopamine-mediated action or the endocannabinoid-mediated action. So you can see almost all dance styles can be performed either for personal reasons or social practice with an audience or without. But we have other side, or we can go to become a professional if you want. But we have dance movement therapy, for example, that doesn't have a performance, doesn't have a training as a goal, as a ballet dancer has. For example, when at the end of term, they will go to the theater. Dance movement therapy is really about the person on their own and what is their goal and motivation. So you have this, and this can be for amateur dancers as well. We might not go to a dance practice to perform or to become professionals, but really because this is what we love. Then we have the knowledge and meaning, which is about a couple of things. One is the social norms, the attribution, the stereotypes that go with the dance, the social gaze that we might have, the perceived social class of dance style. And this is something that we need to have in mind when we study dance. How do we study the style that we're focusing on? Often we focus on classical dance and specifically on Western dance, which is ballet. Bharatanatyam is also classical dance. But these styles have kind of a perceived social class. They are in the theater, they're in the studio, while we don't perceive folk dancing in the same way. It's more accessible. It might be easier. It requires less years of training, academic training, than the classical dances, but we do see a difference in how we perceive this. And then we have the enculturation, the conformism. What is the socio-political landscape of the origin of the dance style? Here we can have, for example, the commercial dance, the TikTok dance that is trending right now, and how different groups, for example, younger people, might really go with it and perform these dances and share them, just what is kind of acceptable or not. And then, as an example, we can have the Tahitian dance that was forbidden during the time of colonization in French Polynesia, or the Iranian dance, the traditional dance, as an example. Now, moving to the second point, which is the dance expertise. How do we measure it? Well, this is a really hard question. And there are different questionnaires out there. The most recent one and the most comprehensive one is the Goldsmith's Dance Sophistication Index. This is not really a timeline, like chronological timeline. It's just the different questionnaires that we have available. The problem is some of them are not actually available. So people have spoken about it, they have cited this, but you cannot find the actual questionnaire, or it's not at least publicly available. And because of this constraint, and because we do study dance all these years, what have we done? Well, one option was to take the assessment of art attributes from Chatterjee and colleagues a few years ago, and change the questions instead of asking about art to dance. And actually, most studies report years of training. So if you go across, if you do like a review of what people have been reported, the years of training is across all, but not much is reported about the other characteristics. Now, this is not necessarily very helpful for the replicability of dance research, because dance practice includes such a range of elements. We have the academic training, we have live performances, we have partnering exercises and group exercises, we have the synchrony of movement with the rest of the people around us or to the music, building stamina. It is work, breathing work, expressivity, and teaching choreography, for example, as well. So we do have a big range. So asking only about years of training doesn't always capture the pluralism, the depth, and the diversity of the training. And as a better example, I also want to mention, I didn't mention the previous one, some of the amazing drawings I'm showing are from Julia. She has made them and kindly agreed for me to use them, and we will use some of them in the paper as well. You're amazing. So just wanted to highlight that. So some of the other like more specific elements that we have for dance expertise is stage experience and rehearsal. If we don't have so if somebody is a professional, but they haven't done, they're like in training, so they haven't done much, they don't have much stage experience. It's not the same with somebody that has been in a dance company, dancing even from pre-professional level, having stage experience. We have choreography, improvisation, as a hard skill, and teaching. We have the training hours per week. We have the expressivity. We have the overlapping expertise. I'm sure you will all agree with me that when we study dancers, in most cases, they don't have only one type of dance that they're experts on. If they're ballet dancers, often they have contemporary dance training. They might even be Pilates trainers in the morning or yoga instructors. So we have a range of expertise there. We have the age of acquisition. When did they start acquiring this sensory motor and artistic training? Of course, we have the visual motor and visual expertise. So we see this range, and as I said, we have the different questionnaires to measure dance expertise, but then maybe this is not always enough. If we really want to understand, for example, if you want to study something related to motor training, motor expertise, proprioception, interoception, or personal space, what about adding physiological measures and physical movements? So we need to see the dancers that we are recruiting, can they actually do the movement? How do they perform? If we have an interoceptive skill that we want to test on, we need to know as well how well they're connected with their own body. And now moving to the third part, which is dance in the lab. How do we take dance from the theaters, from the streets, to the lab? And here I have a graph that Flora has prepared that we have the different elements here. When we talk about ecological validity, for example, we have three factors. We have on the y-axis, we have the context of dance. Where is it performed? Where do spectators experience dance? So we will start from the less ecologically valid, which is lab-based, university lab, for example, to the the most naturalistic we can get, which is a dance venue, theater outside, where people would go anyway to watch performance. Then we have the context. So we have the dance stimuli, which goes from the least ecologically valid, which obviously are things like a still image, which is grayscale with face blurred, no idea what's happening behind, because everything is taken away, all the context taken away. Or point light displays. Then we have the movement, so we can have images, video clips, video performances, up to really live performances in a theater, and the different methods that we can study dance, where it can range from e.g. fMRIs. fMRI is like the least ecologically valid, obviously, going to the maybe mobile EEG, physiological and behavioral methods that we can use. This is just, we have here just a few examples of the studies that have used the different elements here. This is not a comprehensive literature review by any means, just to show you, to visualize kind of the different ways and how most studies actually have focused on the least ecologically valid, and now we're trying, recent studies and current studies are trying to open this up. Now, about the real-world impact, this is about the therapeutic factors of dance practice. This is taken from the review from David and colleagues. Most of the therapeutic factors they mentioned, they also apply to dance practice. So I won't go into them a lot, but I just wanted to show you how actually therapeutic dance practice can be, from agency to creativity, the structure of a session that we might have the embodiment, the body awareness, the nonverbal expression, connecting with self, the safe environment there, which is really judgment-free, and many more. And briefly about the perspective here, the last points are really about the call for action. Here we have the artist as a scientist, or the scientist as an artist. Scientists have been studying dance mostly, but this is more of a reductionist approach. We have decided how to study dance, but we're not all of them, at least we're not all of us professional dancers. So is it fair that we decide how to study dance, and what we take out from this? The more interdisciplinarity is needed and co-creation with the dance community. Maybe we study things that are not necessarily what the dance community has a need for, or they need to tell us sometimes how to better organize our experiments, design them. The cross-cultural work, obviously, how dance is such a universal art, but so diverse, and we have focused most on Western dance styles. So we need a more culturally diverse research, and to understand better if this perceptual, the cognitive processes and emotional processes, are they specific to familiarity? Are they universal? Are they cultural specific? And then the transparency and reputability, this is more about open science, how to have more transparency, methodological rigor, to have our data available, accessible, and so we can access them and reuse them, reanalyze them, and do meta-analysis, better understand the populations that we have studied until now. And a few takeaway messages here, that we do need more rigorous and transparent reporting about the population characteristics. Not only the years of training, we need more information there so we can really compare the studies. We need more emphasis on interdisciplinarity and co-creating with the dance community, and to think out of the box. How can we use dance, for example, in different ways to study the different neural and social phenomena? The dance really offers endless possibilities to study the human brain and cognition. So there is so much more that we can understand, and only by being open about it, we can achieve that and work together as researchers and with other dancers. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So first of all, thank you from everybody here. There's silent clapping from Valentina and not so silent clapping here. And Valentina, I'll let you share some other questions here in the audience. So I don't know if you caught that, but your and this is of course by design. Your talk follows on from a panel discussion on how to best capture these kinds of phenomena. So this was like the perfect summary. Thank you for that. I don't know if anybody wants to rejoin with anything. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
It's just you're saying this, that we need more co-creation with the dancers as part of the scientific process, which is exciting, and I agree with this, and I don't know how. So I was just wondering if you'd say a little bit more about if you've done something or what you imagine you did, like concretely, even because I want to go home and do this.
So Vasiliki, did you get the question?
How do we do this?
Yeah.
Well, there are a few papers already that have been created together with the dancers. For example, the paper from by Julia about Iranian dance. Some other papers, some batteries working with choreographers. They can help us not only provide the movements, but we have now this conflict of the reductionist approach that we usually have as researchers, and then the dancers coming, I would imagine, more diverse, more divergent thinking there, all the possibilities. So we have to work with them. If there are things, for example, there is a need from dance teachers how to better show to students how to improve a movement. So about really limb coordination and motor training. There are currently AI tools that are created about that some dance schools might use how to improve their training. So this is an option how to work with them. There are these new tools coming out. Are they correct? How can dance teachers use them? We as researchers can better help them to how to use the data there, because they might collect data that might be identifiable. So how do they share them? So really the training is the main point that we have heard from dance performers and dance teachers asking for, and also for dancers themselves. If you go to dance classes, all of them, not all, but many of them, the amateur dancers video themselves so they can correct the movement later. How can we better tell them, this is what you did wrong or right? And then for therapy, for example, or for dance practice, there's this idea about body awareness, improving body awareness. Well, how necessarily do we know that? They use words, sometimes dance therapists use words from neuroscience and from empirical cognition theory. But if they're not studied, how do you know that this is the case? So we can really inform them about their tools and about how they can proceed, how they can better improve their practice, and they can help us how to have better stimuli if there are things that we're missing when we reduce the content of the stimuli, and they can have more research-informed dance practice.